A very good morning to you. How are you doing? Welcome to the Relationship Clinic right here on Jam 316. Every Thursday, we take some time to talk about relationships and to talk about marriage and to learn from one another. Now, usually the scenario is boy meets girl, they kick off a relationship, it ends up at the altar, they get married, and the dream is to live happily ever after, especially since we hear a lot of that from the fairy tales. But the reality on the ground, sometimes it's not so. Marriages have challenges, and sometimes marriages don't end up being what you thought it would be. Some marriages end up shipwrecking, you end up in divorce, you end up in separation. Some become abusive and intolerable to live in, and sometimes things just happen. And you know what? You know, when we have conversations with people who've gone through that side of marriage, then there are lessons we can learn from them because those lessons can help us become better wives or become better husbands. And I have such a story for you today. We'll be having a conversation with a gentleman who's separated and just looking back, what are some key lessons he has learned from his encounter and what can he share with us? That's coming up in the next short while. That's the discussion for today. Today we have an amazing guest who's just going to share his story with us, his marriage story, what happened, what he has learned from it, and I bet that we're also going to be able to pick up lessons from his story. This morning, we are glad to be joined by Onesimus Orinda. Onesimus, how are you doing?
I'm good, James. How are you?
I'm very fine. I like the scenery. I like the background, man. Is that the lake or the ocean?
It's actually the Indian Ocean. I'm in an island in Kilifi. It's called Kilifi. The next island after Robinson Island. It's a beautiful place.
Oh yeah, it looks nice.
In the background, there's a bit of ocean you can see right there.
Great, man. Thank you for agreeing to have a conversation with us this morning. Let me begin by asking, what's your current status? Are you separated? Are you divorced? Where are things right now?
Currently separated. And on our way to divorce.
Okay.
I mean, it takes a process. Okay. The entire legal process. So yes, my status currently is separated.
Okay, let me take you back. How did you and your wife meet? How long ago did you meet?
We met about 11 years ago.
Oh.
And because this interview is on air, I usually like to say we met here. We actually met on the internet.
Oh.
Days when nobody thought Facebook would be a place for hookups.
Yeah.
So we were in this group in Facebook for people who would get together, go for adventure and single mingle. And then that's how we got to know each other. And as they say, the rest is history. Of course, inbox followed, and the rest is history.
Okay, I realize when you talk about that, you have a big smile on my face. Those must be some good memories.
Oh, they are beautiful memories. They are beautiful memories. At the time we met, I knew without any doubt that the next person I meet in terms of female partner, I knew the next person I'm going to meet has to be the one.
Okay.
And so when we met, of course, after speaking online for a few weeks, when we finally met face to face, it took me just 5 minutes to say, I think she's the one.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Great. So how long were you married?
We got married in August, 21st of August in 2011. So officially, we 9 years married, though we've known each other slightly longer, almost 11 years, yeah.
Okay. Kids? Kids? Did you have any children?
Yes, we have 2 children. My firstborn is a boy.
Yeah.
And the secondborn is a girl.
Wow.
11 and 8.
11 and 8. Oh my goodness, that's good. That's good. So I'm just curious. So when did things begin to go south? What happened?
You're asking for a very long story, James.
I know. Because it's usually not just one thing. It's a culmination of things, right?
culmination, and in my experience, looking back, there was that time I used to troubleshoot and ask myself, when did the rain start beating us? But then I realized, in marriage, the rain beats you every day from day one. And our rain started beating us every day. What makes the difference is just how we handled our issues. And for me, majorly, I think the rain that beat me is I reached a point I felt the communication wasn't working.
Okay.
And it became more serious in the last 3 or 4 years before we made this decision to separate. When the communication wasn't really working, I felt I was getting a lot of emotional pain and baggage from the kind of communication we were having in the marriage. So if you're looking for an event, it may not be one thing that made it crumble, but I realized there was that process when I felt the communication wasn't working, and unfortunately I didn't have the emotional intelligence and the tools to get myself out of that kind of emotion. Because sometimes I look at myself today and I say, had I known the things I know now about dealing with my feelings and how to appreciate the things I hear that I don't like, if I knew what I know now, maybe we wouldn't have made this kind of decision.
Okay. When you say communication became a challenge, maybe break it down a bit further for us to understand. Is it that you were not talking? Is it that you were harsh to each other? Is it that you were ignoring each other? What was really going on?
Not talking is not one of them. We are two talkers.
Okay.
And that's part of the problem, because I think we were competing to be hard and not to understand each other.
Okay.
And for me, because I'm here alone, so I would like to give a disclaimer that this is my part of the story, and it's not the whole story.
There's always two sides of every story,
Yeah, so the other party would definitely have a different side of this, or another angle that is missing. But in my experience, the communication was hurtful. The communication was unkind. The communication was there was a lot of you know what people sometimes believe, trying to correct you, using criticism, always finding one thing or the other that could be done better, and then you tell your wife, oh, I think you should do this better. I think we had a lot of that. But what really made that worse is whenever we tried to resolve issues that came through communication, the communication in the process of trying to resolve it even became worse. So what happened is we never actually got to resolve 90% of the issues that we felt always were bringing friction. Because I would be in a situation where I feel I don't like how she said that. And then when we sit down and we say, okay, let's talk about that. Let's see how we can improve this situation. We would end up with World War III. And then I would even wish I left it at that, So the fact that we didn't have a conflict resolution culture around our communication problems, I think really made it worse for me.
Okay. Now, looking back, earlier on you said that knowing what you know now, maybe you would have done things differently. When you think about the style of communication the two of you engaged in, looking back now, what would you do different where communication is concerned?
Looking back, I have learned that a big part of communication for me is not really what I say and how I say, but it's really how I choose to take what is being said. Because it's a lot of work trying to walk on eggshells, thinking of what to say, how do I put it, how will they appreciate it. I realized the bigger problem sometimes, actually for me, the bigger problem was I did not have the emotional intelligence to just break it down and know that as much as whatever was said and how it was said, I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know how to deflect that energy and stop it from hurting me, stop it from sending me into negative motions. So what I'll do differently now, and what I've learned is I came to appreciate that I am whole as a
Mm-hmm.
person. I came to appreciate that I am enough, and nothing that is said or done can take away that from me. Nothing that anyone says, no matter how they say it. You see, my focus used to be so much on how does she address me?
Yeah.
What's her language? There is a place for that where I believe we should still be very sensitive and very selective in terms of how we want to address each other.
Mm-hmm.
The language should be full of pleasantness instead of negativity.
Yeah.
But I've learned for myself that if I were to be in the same situation again, I would not be so eager to have the other person change their language or their approach or their way of addressing me. I have learned to appreciate that whatever is said does not change the fact that I am whole. And so for me, how I appreciate the communication is a bigger deal than how they say it or do it.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. On her part, were there issues that she would raise with you about how you communicate with her?
Yes, there were, and one of the major things is I wasn't a good listener. But I could have said back then in my defense that I wasn't a good listener because I didn't like what I was hearing. So it was a cycle.
Yes.
It was we were never ever going to resolve it. So yes, on her part, she always felt that I am present physically, but emotionally, intellectually, I'm not there. So that makes communication difficult.
Okay. Did these communication issues, did they spill over to the children, or it was just between the two of you?
No, most of the time it was between the two of us. Of course, the separation process was a bit emotional. Yeah. And both of us at one point or another did and said things that spill over to the children. But largely, our communication, I think, allow me to give myself or us as I think we did a good job in terms of trying to not have the children be part of this triangle, love-hate triangle that the communication issues were creating. Yes. But to some extent, as much as they were not hearing and they were not directly exposed to the conflict, we realized that that energy still spills over. Yes, it does. Because we started seeing ourselves in them. Wow. In whenever they had their own conflicts, and I could see myself in my son, and she could see herself in the girl. So we realized, yes, as much as we didn't make them deliberately exposed to our differences, sort of the energy in the home, it still spills over. And I'm yet to figure out how that happened, because we really tried. I mean, we were not raising our voices, we're not throwing utensils at each other. Yeah. But we realized after some time that actually the children were sounding like us whenever they were having their own disagreements. I think and that really broke my heart. For me, that was a huge moment in the mirror. Wow. I think that's a huge lesson that every married couple needs to learn. Because for a good number of married couples who are sensible, you love God, you want to make this thing work. When you have issues, you try and keep them to yourself.
But what you're sharing is very important because we don't realize that our children are observant. Our children pick up the energy that we have, our tone of voice, how we react to one another. I think that's huge.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
What I learned from that experience is you can shield your children from what you do, but you cannot shield them from who you are.
Ooh.
And we perfected the art of protecting them from what we were doing, but we could not protect them from who we were.
That's a huge statement right there. This morning, we get to hang out with Onesimus. You go kwa beach, my friend. Me, I'm stuck in the studio with lights all over, and Onesimus gets to do an interview at the beach. One day, Onesimus, I'll be like you. One day, if you have any questions for us, 20316 is the SMS line. WhatsApp number is 0786316316. It's 24 minutes after 8. We'll also talk about, what are the things. What was that last straw that broke the camel's back for you to say, you know what? I'm out of here. We'll talk about that shortly. Responses coming into today's discussion. Timothy Wauba, he's saying the good thing is that he's able to identify that they have problems in communication. My desire is if they can try and revive the marriage. Losing an 11-year investment is really a harsh thing. And then I have Adhiambo in Mombasa is asking Onesimus, did the two of you ever try to seek for help?
I'm supposed to respond to that now?
Yes. Did the two of you ever try to seek for help? That is what Adhiambo in Mombasa is asking.
Yes, we tried. We tried a couple of times. Went for counseling, but like I told you, why counseling didn't help much is because we were both stuck up in the cycle. Let me give an example so that you get the picture.
Okay.
There's one fateful Saturday morning. We were supposed to go to church, and we had agreed on time for going to church. And so I knew by 7:45 in the morning, we are all supposed to be in the car because we wanted to get a children's program. And so I'm in the car by 7:45, and she's not ready, and I'm sure women who are watching this can identify with that. And then I decided to drive, and I left her. So, of course, that was not taken very kindly. I thought I'm keeping time because we agreed we should keep time.
Yeah.
And she thought, how insensitive. How did you just drive to church and leave me? So when we sat down and tried to resolve that, there were two levels of blame. I said, you are wrong because you're not keeping time. And she said, you are wrong because you hurt me, you were insensitive, and you drove away and left me.
Wow.
And so because we were trying to sort of trade off on our emotions and hearts and see who has the higher balance, that cycle always happened in our relationship. So I've just given that short story to help you appreciate the kind of cycle we always went through, where I feel aggrieved, she feels aggrieved, and we say it has to be a trade-off.
Yeah.
If you're not letting that down, I am not going to also take responsibility. So even though we went through counseling, we never really let go of that kind of transaction. And so counseling didn't help much.
Everybody was stuck in their position.
Absolutely.
Wow. You know, that whole church thing, I've been tempted to do that several times, but I've held back.
Don't try it.
Yes, that
Don't
whole
try
issue.
it. Don't
That whole
trouble.
issue at in the end, and you are at I've left my wife and kids, and I've actually voiced it several times, but I've never done it. Thank God I've never done it, because when you think about it, it's not really really a good thing to do. So, Onesimus, tell me, what was it that actually broke the camel's back? What was it that made you? I'm assuming you're the one who moved out of the house.
Yes, I'm the one who moved out.
What happened?
And let me. I like to say this when I talk about this part. Whatever I'm going to tell you is purely for historical purposes, for you to appreciate where we came from and how we ended up this way.
Okay.
It is not my current view, or it's not my current opinion or way of looking at things.
Okay.
Because between the time we separated earlier this year and now, I have gone through therapy. I've gone through a lot of things that have helped me to reclaim my sanity and
That's
to
good.
heal and look at life better.
That's
So I am giving you this simply because it's in the past, and I am telling it as a story, not as my current experience.
Okay.
What broke the camel's back, I would say, was we reached a point, and especially last year, I felt totally emotionally drained as a build-up of these communication problems, and so I was at a complete empty. I was at a total empty on my love tank, and when we had conflicts, it actually allowed me to contemplate walking out.
Okay.
And so every conflict that came up, especially last year, made me feel like, do I have to really go through this every day? At some point, I reached a point where I felt that religion or faith was a big source of contention, because there were high expectations in terms of me being the man of the house, being the bishop or the priest of the home. And so there were high expectations, and whenever those expectations were not met, there would be a lot of what I call lack of grace for the priest of the home.
Okay.
And so one of the things I said when I thought I had really reached my love empty, I said, I don't want to have faith in this marriage, because I felt it was a source of conflict.
Okay.
It is because of the standards of faith and religion that I was being sort of measured against, and I was found wanting in my own family. And so I said, I don't want faith. And that went away with a lot of other things. So I said, I don't want to be accountable. I said, I don't want to have boundaries anymore, because I felt that these were really the issues that were being misused to sort of drive me into a corner of emotional hurt that I didn't like. So when I decided that these issues, I'm throwing them out of the window, at that time I met a third party.
Oh.
And that made things difficult.
Okay.
Because now I had to be very honest with my spouse and say, I'm at that place where I'm not willing to even end my association with a third party. So that kind of broke the camel's back for both of us, because I put her in a situation where she felt this is not what she bargained for.
Yeah.
She knew we were going to have a relationship with boundaries, a relationship based on faith, a relationship with accountability, and I sort of pulled all that off her feet, and that's when we both felt, you know what?
Yeah.
We need to take some time off. Yeah.
Wow. I'm glad you began by saying that what you're telling us is for historical purposes, and that is not your view now after you've gone through therapy and all that, because I think that is really, really important. I'm just wondering, after you left, so did you continue your relationship with this third party, or did that also collapse?
The relationship continued. Yeah. I would not like to highlight it a lot at this point.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, because it may not be important for this interview.
That's fine.
But as time goes, we'll know what happens with life.
Yes, that's fine. At what point did you get to a place where you figured, I need help, I need to seek for therapy? What drove you to that?
After we separated early this year, the end of March. I started going through a lot of motions of missing my family, missing my children.
Wow.
It also came at a very bad time when I was financially really down.
Okay.
So this sort of started driving me into depression.
Okay.
Luckily, someone offered help, and I plugged into it, and I started going through a lot of psychotherapy that helped me to look at myself and to appreciate myself as I am, that I am whole, I am complete. And one of the biggest lessons I learned through my therapy, which I think lacked in my marriage, is I didn't know that I had conflicts within. And so I thought that the conflicts in my marriage were caused by my partner. As much as she did things that I didn't like, for it to become a conflict for me to get angry, for me to get hurt, for me to feel disappointed,
yes,
it reflects a conflict within me, in my mentality, in my way of evaluating that situation, because even things that we don't like, they have a beautiful aspect. And so I didn't know how much power I have to stop myself from drowning into this conflict. So when I realized I was drowning into depression and help was offered, I took it, and that was in the middle of this year from July. And I went through it, and about 10 weeks of that program, and it really helped me.
Wow. So did you finish with the program, or are you still going through it?
I finished with the first phase. I'm yet to start another phase in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering, because you've talked a bit about faith and being the priest of the home, sometimes when it comes to issues of separation and divorce, I find that sometimes the church is a bit too harsh with those who are going through this. You know, and sometimes we don't know how to treat them. Sometimes we say some things that are quite insensitive. I'm wondering if the both of you have gone through a similar cycle with the church, and if the church has offered any kind of support.
The church, and particularly the church that I was exposed to, has not been very helpful.
Okay. Okay.
I have nothing against them. I think I have learned experiences that if they are if they are open enough, I think I have learned experiences that I can share with the church that make the church very helpful to families. The church has played a huge role in terms of setting standards.
Yeah.
But it has lacked the grace to deal with its people, or even with itself, when these standards are not met. It's raining here. I hope it's not giving you trouble hearing me.
We can still hear you. There's a bit of background noise, but we can still hear you.
All right. So I think the church has not taught itself to have grace and to relate with itself and its members with grace, to catch people who are failing. The church had a lot of emphasis on standards, how moral you should be, what it takes to be a pious and God-fearing Christian. But church forgets that people have wounds, people are limping, and unfortunately, my church setup doesn't have a very proper mechanism to deal with failure, or to deal with people who feel wounded and inadequate, especially at a family level. Because family meetings are full of a pile-up of expectations. You go for a church family meeting, it's a pile-up of expectation after expectation, without having the grace to know that as much as we have these standards, there are people who are struggling. There are people who are not having sex in their marriages. There are people who are not communicating. There are people who are going through emotional and physical violence. I felt the church has not come through in that way. But if they are willing to learn, there's a lot that could be done.
I think that's why I usually have this forum, because I believe it's an avenue for us to be able to learn from one another. Because I do agree with you, there is a standard, but we fall short, and we need to encourage one another and help one another to keep going. You know, though you may fall 7 times, you still rise up and keep going again. So I love that you bring in that angle. Speaking as a pastor, I do agree that sometimes we are a bit harsh with some of these situations, but the truth of the matter is that sometimes we don't really really know how to deal with them, but it's a learning process. Okay, several people responding before we listen to some music. This one is saying, I'm watching from Kiambu. I was married for 10 years, but separated. Your guest appears so strong and so sober. And then I have another one here also. Great interview there. I'm also divorced. Mine was a very dramatic one. I almost killed my ex-husband. Divorce is a very terrible thing. And then, okay, where was the other one? This one says, this one is a long one. Maybe we'll get to it.
Interrupt you, but I identify with that comment. Pastor James, divorce feels like death, and I speak from experience. So I identify with that person who says divorce is a terrible thing.
Yes, in fact, I was going to ask you that after we listen to some music, so we'll get into that. If you have a question for our guest today, 20316 is the SMS line. WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. If you identify with some of the things he's talking about, and I love the fact that he's open and candid. You know, he's not throwing blame here, there, everywhere. He's telling us his experience, and now looking back, what are some things he can do different? What are the lessons he's learned? And I truly appreciate that, and I love the fact that he sought help. He went through therapy. That's also very, very important. So this morning we get to hang out with Onesimus, and he's sharing with us his marriage journey. Things didn't work out, but what lessons has he learned? I have SMSs coming from all over the place. This one is coming in from Wendani. You say, thanks for the topic. Communication is important. For me and my ex-husband, we used to fight a lot. He used to call me hurtful words, and I could explode like a volcano. I was told I'm the one with the problem, so I decided to shut my mouth. No matter what he could do or say, I did nothing. He didn't go very far. We ended up leaving one another. That's a comment from somebody listening in from Wendani. Thank you so much for that SMS. And then okay, let's go back to something you had mentioned earlier, Onesimus, before we went into the music. Just the whole issue about divorce and separation not being a very good thing. Maybe you can share a bit of your experience with us. Can you hear me? Onesimus, can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can hear you. Yeah. Your audio is low though. I don't know if you can hear me though.
Yes, I can hear you well. I'm saying, before we went to the music, you had mentioned something about divorce and separation not being a very good thing. Maybe you can give us more details about that.
My experience has been marriage turns you into sort of one energy.
Mm-hmm.
We are made of memories and imaginations in our inner being.
Yeah.
And when you are married, your memories and your imaginations sort of become one, so intertwined, and it's I don't have a very logical way of saying this,
yes,
but I can say that it's almost like you become embedded into each other, into your emotional and intellectual process.
Yes.
The way I felt when I finally reached that point where we called it and say we are going for a divorce and we are filing this, the way I felt is the kind of loss you feel when someone dies.
Wow.
It's like someone snatches that imagination and memory, because for the last 10 years I had not known how to look at life without her.
Yes.
And that's the same for her. And now what makes it even worse is the children.
Yes.
Children went to bed one night knowing that they have a mommy and daddy and a happy family, and they woke up one morning and they know that daddy has to go, because I'm the one who had to leave the house so that I don't destabilize the rest of them. So the children do not understand why two grown-ups cannot love each other and get along. They did not bargain for this kind of emotional trouble and pain and trauma that we took them through by deciding to be apart. And so for them, it's very, very difficult. Especially children believe that there should be very simple plug and play solutions to relationship problems.
Yeah.
For example, when we were separating, one of the things my son said, you know what? If you cannot live with mom, you can come and live in my room. And for him, that was a solution.
Wow.
And I agree with him.
Yes.
It was a very practical solution
Yes.
to a very practical problem, because children do not know how to have to entangle themselves into emotional conflict like we do as adults. Unfortunately, we teach them too. As they grow up, they learn to have this internal conflict.
Yes.
So there's a deep sense of loss for us. It is not something that you say. It is not a pleasant experience.
Yes.
I would actually also say that when you appreciate the necessity of why you really had to go apart, it also sometimes gives relief. It doesn't stop you from having the wounds and the pain of going apart.
Yeah.
But part of it is it gives you relief from things that were making life very unbearable in the marriage.
Okay.
And so that could be a silver lining, but it's difficult to imagine life, that memory that has been so intertwined intimately for over 1 decade. And I don't think it's any easier, even if the time is short. Whether it's 2 years or 10 years or 15 years, I don't know. I don't think it's any easier. But for me, it felt like someone had died.
Wow. Wow. I have several people asking, knowing what you know now and the fact that you've gone through therapy, have you considered reconciliation? Is that a discussion that the both of you have ever thought of having?
We have had discussions about reconciliation, but allow me not to say everything on air, because some of these things are sensitive, involving the other party.
Very, very true.
But so far it hasn't worked.
Okay.
But we gave it a shot. Even recently, we gave it a shot. But so far, it hasn't worked.
Okay.
And I've learned to be happy and grateful as life goes along. I don't know what the future holds.
Wow.
Yeah.
At least I'm glad that is something you've talked about, even though it's not borne fruit. It's not bore fruit, but I'm glad it's a conversation you started engaging in. Onesimus, I'm almost out of time. What would your parting shot be if you're speaking to the married couples who are listening, number one, and also to those who've gone through a divorce, because several people actually have gone through divorce and separation who've texted in today. So to these two groups of people, beginning with the married couples, what would you tell them? And then those who are divorced or separated, what would you tell them?
I'd like to share 2 lessons that are deeply shaping my life right now. And it's nothing new. I'd like to remind you of the day you were born, that moment you came from your mother's womb in the hospital or whatever location it was. That moment, there was nothing between you and you. It was just you.
Yeah.
And at that moment, you were just a few minutes old or even a few seconds old. But guess what? You were enough, you were complete, and you were whole. You didn't have hobbies, you didn't have interests, you didn't have dreams.
Yeah.
You did not have investments, you did not have a career, you did not have a relationship. You were whole. And I like to remember that moment that cannot be taken away from you. The wholeness, the enoughness that you were when you were born is something you cannot improve backwards or forwards. You cannot take it away. You cannot be more whole than you were when you came.
Wow.
And so as you go through marriage, you should understand that your spouse is not completing you. You are whole. You do not need improvement from a partner or from a relationship to make you more whole than you are. Right now, you can take away my name. You can take away everything I own. You can take away my clothes. You can take away my dreams, my ambitions, but you will not change the fact that I am me, and that can never be altered.
Okay.
So I always remember, I was born with nothing. I will go with nothing. I am whole. I am enough. And a relationship should not alter that equation within you emotionally or psychologically. The other thing I would like to say is we have most of the 99% of the conflicts we have with others are because we already have those conflicts within ourselves.
Wow.
If someone tells you you look like an ugly duck, you can only feel bad if inside you think it's a bad thing to look like an ugly duck. Because a duck does not feel ugly and a duck does not feel bad the way it looks.
Yes.
And so that conflict in you, between you and the duck, it is what is making you feel bad when someone says you look like a duck. And so if we learn to appreciate and solve conflicts within ourselves,
yes,
we will almost have no conflict with other people. It is true that people can create unpleasantness around you, but you have the power to decide whether that unpleasantness will be created within you. You cannot control what they do around you, but you have full access. You have the full password and access as to whether they are going to control how you feel and how you think emotionally.
Wow.
And finally, for the single,
yes,
I like to tell them, get married because you want, not because you think it will complete you. You are whole.
Wow. Onesimus, I'm glad we had this conversation. Thank you for sparing some time to talk to us. Unajua Christmas inakaribia, maybe I'll come and lie at the beach there with you. I like that scenery. God bless you, my friend. Thank you. God bless you.
Karibu, and thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day.
Great. I hope our conversation today with Onesimus has given you something to think about. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. Thank you so much for being a part of the Relationship Clinic today.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.